Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating behavioral puzzle. We're going to look at why having a really quick, raw intuition might actually be ruining your relationships instead of, helping them. I mean, it sounds entirely backwards, right? We usually think of intuition as this incredible superpower. But the source material we're digging into today makes a really compelling argument. If you don't know exactly how to handle that perceptive nature of yours, it's pretty much a guaranteed recipe for interpersonal disaster. So we're going to unpack exactly why this happens, and more importantly, how to fix it.
So let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever been in a conversation and you just knew exactly what the other person was going to say, so you jump in, you interrupt to finish their thought, and boom, you accidentally start a huge fight? You probably thought you were being super helpful, right? Or showing them how empathetic you are by understanding them instantly. But instead of feeling heard, the other person just got super defensive, angry, or maybe they just shut down entirely. If you have ever experienced that incredibly frustrating moment, well, you're dealing with the exact paradox we are decoding today.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the hidden trap of quick intuition.
Okay, let's dive into this paradox of why being naturally quick to understand actually causes so much friction with the people around us. To really get where this comes from, we need to look at this fascinating generational distinction our source makes. It attributes this lightning-fast intuition specifically to what it calls the analog generation. Think of them as having this highly sensitive DNA, right? It's been honed over time to read complex situations instantly. It's like hearing a tiny faint noise and immediately knowing exactly what caused it. They contrast this with the slightly slower, more deliberate digital generation. So the analog generation's intuition is incredibly fast. They can literally read an entire room with a single glance. But acting on that speed without any kind of filter? Well, that is exactly where the trouble begins.
Now, our source material warns against something it perfectly translates as fortune teller behavior. This is basically the act of just spitting out what you sense the second you feel it, without even processing it first. Imagine a fortune teller who gets a sudden flash of insight and just blurts it out. When you do this in everyday life, when you sense someone's problem and instantly throw the answer right at them before they've even finished their sentence, the source warns that this is literally the absolute fastest way to start a war with someone.
To put this into perspective, let's look at a real-world domestic example from the text. Imagine a husband who is winding up to say something important, and his highly intuitive wife instantly guesses his intent. She just blurts out, "Oh, you're trying to do this, aren't you?" Now, she might be 100% correct, but how does the husband feel in that moment? He feels totally caught, cornered really. His pride takes a huge hit because his own internal thoughts were exposed and intercepted way before he was truly ready to share them. So instead of solving a problem, her quick intuition just sparked a massive argument.
Which brings us right to Section 2, pretend not to know.
Okay, so if your lightning-fast intuition is actually sparking fights, how do you manage it? The advice here is actually super counterintuitive, but it's brilliant. It's incredibly simple, yet deeply challenging to pull off. Accept the energy, but close your mouth. The text explains that when someone approaches you, they are essentially projecting their energy onto you. If they haven't genuinely asked you for your help or your advice just yet, your job is not to solve their problem. Your job is to accept that energy, smile, and simply stay quiet. You just let them do what they need to do, without you intercepting it with your psychic-level insights.
Moving right along to Section 3, intuition is only 70% right.
So why exactly does speaking too soon backfire so badly? I mean, why shouldn't you just help them if you know the answer, right? Well, the source gives us this fantastic mathematical breakdown that explains the mechanics of human communication so perfectly. Raw intuition only captures 70% of a given situation. Because a person approaches you with this high concentration of emotional energy, your intuition easily grabs onto that big 70% chunk. So you think you know the whole story. But you don't. There's a hidden 30%. Their deeper intent, their unspoken fears, or just little details you couldn't possibly guess, and that part remains completely invisible to you.
Think about it. If you speak up when you only have that 70%, you're basically attacking them with incomplete data. Actually, scratch that. It's more like you're jumping to a major conclusion while missing the most crucial pieces of the puzzle. The source emphasizes that you absolutely must listen without interrupting. By keeping your mouth shut and letting them speak, that unknown 30% finally bubbles up to the surface. You literally need that missing 30% to fully digest the situation. It's only when you have 100% of the picture that you can formulate a response that will actually be helpful and, more importantly, well received.
Let's look at how to actually do this in Section 4, the wisdom of 3 steps back. Look, staying quiet when your brain is just firing on all cylinders is incredibly tough. We all know that. So the source provides this highly practical strategy for creating the physical and mental space you need to digest all this incoming information. It outlines a method of mentally and energetically stepping back. Step 1. Taking one step back. This is basically just narrowly dodging the issue. It doesn't really solve anything. Step 2. Taking 2 steps back. Now this gives you a bit more relaxation and a slightly wider view of the person's problem. But step 3, that is the magic number. Taking exactly 3 steps back allows your eyes to take in the entire picture. It gives you the necessary distance to properly digest everything the person is bringing to you, without getting tangled up in their immediate, chaotic emotions.
And you know what the real beauty of taking those 3 steps back is? The whole dynamic shifts. The source notes that by patiently waiting in that space, the person who approached you will eventually process their own initial chaotic energy. And because you didn't attack them with your quick intuition right out of the gate, they will eventually return to you. But this time, they will be truly ready. They will genuinely ask for your guidance. And when they finally ask, that is when you speak.
This leads us right to the core of this whole explainer. Section 5. Innate sense versus equipped knowledge.
We're hitting the most important distinction right now, the massive difference between what we are born with and what we actually have to build. This is the core philosophy behind why intuitive people often struggle so much in their relationships. The text draws a hard line between raw intuition and actual knowledge. Intuition, the source argues, is just an innate ability. It's a raw tool given to you by nature, totally unearned and completely unrefined. Knowledge, on the other hand, is the educated structural framework required to use that tool. If you have a wildly powerful tool but absolutely no rules for how to apply it, you're going to cause disasters. You must pair your innate ability with the learned discipline of how to properly interact with other human beings. And this right here is why education and self-awareness are an absolute must. The source explains that when a highly intuitive person is properly educated, like when they learn the structural knowledge of patience, listening for that hidden 30%, and waiting for the genuine question, they completely transform. They stop causing all that interpersonal friction. Instead, they become an absolute master at resolving pretty much any issue they run into. They become the ultimate problem solver because they now have both the raw processing power and the hard-earned wisdom to use it correctly. So let's reflect on this incredibly powerful summary from the text. Know, but pretend not to know. It doesn't mean playing dumb, not at all. It means having the profound discipline to hold your insight quietly. It is the ultimate display of respect for the other person's process, you know? You let them arrive at the conclusion safely without you forcing them into a corner with your rapid-fire intuition.
So, what's the big takeaway for us here? The very next time someone comes to you and your intuition instantly fires up with the exact answer, catch yourself. Remember that you only have a piece of the puzzle. Leave some space. In your next conversation, are you going to react blindly to the 70% you sense right away, or will you take 3 steps back, keep quiet, and discover the full 100%? The choice is absolutely yours, and honestly, it might just save your relationships. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.